Hi, my name is Shelby Frick, and my research project for this semester was the death penalty in capital cases. Excuse me. Um, just about the entire topic. A death penalty is imposed on someone who has committed 9 times out of 10 murders when someone's life was taken in a capital case. In this research study, we're not focusing on past research or what the death penalty is per se. We're focusing on the perceptions of the community on its effectiveness to deter future homicides from occurring. So that's what we'll be focusing on. So prior research on the death penalty and just a little bit of background information, Furman versus Georgia and Gregg versus Georgia are two of the most well-known court cases that reached the Supreme Court, appealing the death penalties that um, the defendants in these cases actually received. So with this, there was change. At first, the death penalty was more or less put on hold, but and that was in the Furman versus Georgia. But then in Gregg versus Georgia, it was kind of re-implemented in every state that chose to do it. There's been a lot of research on whether it actually deters crime, or is it just a sentence that we're imposing on people that is not effective in any shape or form. There are, just like any other political view or any type of view, there's people who support the death penalty and there are people who oppose it for the very reasons of whether that be they feel like we as humans should not take the life of another, that's not our place, or simply because the cost associated with killing someone, which in fact is more than incarcerating them for the rest of their lives for murder, for killing somebody. So that's just a little bit of the back research on it. There's cost issues with it. There's people that are dying who, due to death penalty, they go through with the whole thing, whether it be through lethal injections or whatever the case may be. Their sentence is fulfilled, and come to find out they were innocent. So we're killing innocent people as well. So that itself is an issue. So in our, or in my research, I wanted to, again, as I stated previously, look at the perceptions of the community on whether they felt, not whether statistics show. I wanted to see how they felt when it came to whether or not sentencing someone, to the death penalty actually deters future homicides from occurring. So a survey was created through Google Forms, and here you'll see the 8 main questions we asked. We did ask demographic questions such as age, your race, your ethnicity, whether you identified as male or female, things in that nature, such as your political affiliation. But these are the questions that we focused on when it came to the death penalty, which was your support of the death penalty. You were giving the decision to strongly disagree, be neutral about the position, strongly agree, or just simply agree. And I like the neutral position fact only because I recently took a survey and I had absolutely no knowledge of the question that I was being asked on multiple questions in the survey. And I wish they had a neutral answer just so I could more or less not agree or disagree. So those were the responses that all respondents were giving, their support, and they were asked to agree or disagree on that terms. The effectiveness of the deterrence of it, and whether or not they believed the death penalty should be imposed in all cases, especially violent ones, whether or not the lethal injection, which is a form used to kill offenders when it is time, whether they thought that was a humane form of treatment, was the death penalty constitutional or unconstitutional, whether or not people believe that the defender getting the death penalty, if it actually brought closure to the family or not. Should it be applicable to juveniles, which is under the age of 18, who committed a crime during that time, or should they not be imposed on them? and whether or not the participant believed that the state should be able to carry out the death penalty in whichever way they pleased. And in the survey, it asked lethal injection, firing squad, gas squad. So just any way that the state could possibly come up with, did someone agree or disagree with, they should be able to decide however they wanted to. So on top of those questions, as well as the demographic questions, I wanted to focus on key points. I wanted to make hypotheses, and these are it where I wanted to compare Republicans and Democrats, parents, and their views on the support of the death penalty. I wanted to see if females and males thought differently when it came, to the support of the death penalty. And I wanted to see if there was a difference between white and non-white participants, just because I feel like those are the four main topics that people typically look at: your political affiliation, are you a parent, your gender, and your race and ethnicity. So those are my four hypotheses listed here, where Republicans would support it more, parents who or people who were parents, were more likely to believe that the death penalty is an effective form of deterrence compared to people without children. Females were more likely to be against it, and then there would be no difference between white and non-white participants. So it was my hypothesis for each of those. So as I mentioned previously, we used Google Forms to create the actual survey, and how the survey was administered to people. I actually uploaded a post on Facebook asking simply for people to take it. I let them know that I was in my last semester of college and that I was doing this study on the death penalty and whether it causes, or the deterrence factor in it all. So I was just simply asking them. I provided the link in my post, and I had people respond. Now, at first, I wasn't getting a lot of responses. I probably got maybe 20, 30, 40, I'm not sure exactly, with just sending it out there and allowing people, just whoever, making it public to whoever wanted to see it, to take it. But I wasn't getting the volume that I wanted. So probably about a week into it, I reposted the request to actually take the survey and actually tag people on my friends list, that way it could get their attention. It's on their Facebook page and somebody else could see it, one of their friends. So that actually is when I saw an increase of like 50, or I saw like 50 respondents within a day's time frame. So that was very helpful, but it was all volunteer based. Anybody 18 years and older, I did advise that as well, that there would be no payment for it. It was all volunteer at will, and they did not have to finish it if they did not want to. So after all that was collected, I ran my numbers using a JASP software, and I kind of just hit key points right here. I saw more female respondents. I saw more respondents within the age range of 25 to 30, and there was kind of a tie between white and African Americans in the respondent list. And I can't make any assumptions because that's a whole nother study, but I can only assume because that's the audience I was targeting on my friends list, which is mostly white and African Americans. I had a majority of non-Hispanic. They were either single and married. There was no more than another, more single people than married people. It was kind of split. And then the people with children was kind of split as well. And then I saw more Democrat participants. Now, this is just the top results, not to say that I didn't get any male participants, not to say that I didn't get anybody out of those age range or those racial or ethnic groups, or anybody who didn't identify with the Democrat Party. So those are just the top results there that I had. And to refer to the hypothesis, now this is where we were kind of diving in. We wanted to see if my hypothesis was supported based on the data that was collected. So what I did with this JASP software, I ran the numbers to statistical reasons, and I just compared people who were with their party affiliation, compared to the question, I support the use of the death penalty. And these are kind of the top results that I got based on my hypothesis. And as you can see here, there was a 62.5% support versus a 12.2% support for someone's agreement or support for the death penalty, I should say. So Republicans were more supportive of it. And I do want to point out that, as I mentioned earlier, participants did have the ability to disagree, strongly disagree, be neutral, agree, or strongly agreed. And what I did with these percentages on all of them, on all of them, I added the level of agreements up. So for example, if someone answered agree and someone else answered strongly agree for the Republican Party, I added those parties up, and that's where my numbers are coming from. So overall, piggybacking on back to my hypothesis, I was assuming that Republicans would support the use of the death penalty compared to Democrats. And based on my results and based on the numbers that we have here, my hypothesis was actually supported. So that was good. Going to the parents, my hypothesis was people with children would support it more, than people without children would support the death penalty. Now this one, there was a slight difference. There was kind of more or less an even split based on the numbers. Now I don't have them on the screen, but I didn't want to just throw a whole bunch of numbers at you and it just be like, okay, what's going on here? But based on it, there was an even split, and my hypothesis based on the parental and the support of the death penalty was slightly supported. So not all the way there, but it was definitely supported in some shape or form. So there's a good check there. Gender, my hypothesis on that, if you do not recall, is I thought females were less likely to support the use of the death penalty compared to males. And again, based on my numbers and statistics and calculations and my analysis on everything, that came to be correct. Males were more likely to support the death penalty compared to females. Now, again, I can't draw conclusions as to why that would be, as that would be another study, but we can just say that it was supported. And lastly, the last hypothesis was the non-white and white partisans, that there would not be a significant difference. So what I liked about this one is, as I mentioned earlier, I had an even split between white participants, or not an even, I had a fairly even split between white participants and non-white participants. So this played well for my hypothesis because it was nearly half. So I could base that off. Running the numbers was more or less easy. And my hypothesis was actually proven wrong in a sense. Well, not in a sense, not proven wrong. It was a level of agreement and a level of disagreement, because my results were showing that half the people supported it, which were non-white participants, and then half, which were white participants, supported it as well. So I think that can play into the party affiliation, that can play into gender, it could play into a lot of things, but that one was half and half as well. And then my policy recommendations, I was able to, sorry about that, policy recommendations. What I was suggested for the policy recommendations, just based on, let's fix this, I'm so sorry. Based on the information that I've gathered on the effectiveness of it deterring future homicides from occurring. One, it doesn't. It causes no deterrence effect. Homicides are continuing to occur, and it's not that they're lowering with the fact that someone may know, or someone knows that they could possibly get the death penalty when going to trial. So that's a main factor I considered when looking into potential policy recommendations. Another factor was the cost. We are spending more money in America to kill someone based on their crime than to still punish them, and but lock them up for the rest of their life. So my policy recommendation was to eliminate death penalty in capital cases, or in the United States as a whole, not just capital cases, just eliminate death penalty as an option in general, and just do life without the possibility of parole. Now, I base these conclusions on whether or not it brings closure to the victim's family. Some said yes, some said no. Now, we can't say if those are people that actually went through this themselves. Again, that's another study that we would have to do. If we continue to run studies and studies and studies, it can always be a never-ending study. So I feel like we should go ahead and just eliminate it altogether. We're saving money. We're still punishing them for their crime, and we're still giving the public satisfaction by removing them from the community and them paying their debt to society in jail. So excuse me. So I definitely suggest life without the possibility of parole. Now, in my research paper, I suggested maybe getting with government officials, getting with mayors, getting with people who are actually running in political races to get this topic not only out there, but to campaign against the use of capital punishment. It's something that we can go around, Tyler, petitioning it, but we definitely need someone with a higher voice and someone that is able to get on television, or for example, somebody who's running for president, or someone who's running for governor in Texas that plans to make worldwide change or just make change starting in Texas. We definitely need to get this topic in their head. We need their level of support, and that's really where it starts, is with them, with us, and that was definitely my policy recommendation. And here's just the references that I've used for my entire paper. I wanted to throw them in here because some of the information that I was mentioning was based on research. But I think that is all I have for you. Thank you so very much. I appreciate your time.